This is day 3 of my coding journey for Swift. If you want to see the Swift UI version, check it out. It should be up by now. Now today I learned a lot about operators and conditions. Operators are the basic stuff we know from school: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now conditions are essentially the things we create. If this happens, do this, else do something else. So if we check in my code base, basic math, I did addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and just put out the output. As you can see here on the side, very simple, very straightforward. And I kind of like how the right side kind of lets me know before even printing it out. And also you could find remainders by using the percent symbol. Now on to overloading operators. That basically means, from what I was reading and watching, the intended purpose of an operator can sometimes be used in multiple ways. So for example, addition would be used with a plus sign to add two numbers together to get another number. But in this case, you could use it for arrays and strings, where you could combine a string to make it a longer string. And then same thing with an array, it combines it to make a bigger array. So for example, phrase part 1, I made it my magic power is, and then for the full phrase, I did the variable plus another string. Now usually you would just do number number, I'm doing string string. And then we scroll down here, I'm doing an array plus another array. Now compound assignment operators. I would say that's when you are doing a computation while you're storing the variable. Because if you notice, when you're coding, the equal sign, you're storing the value into the variable. But for this, you could also not only store, but multiply, subtract, divide, whatever the case might be for whatever you're coding. Now, comparison operators is essentially where you're comparing two variables and seeing if they are equal to each other, greater than each other, not equal to each other, less than. Two equal signs means that you're comparing. One equal sign means that you're storing a value. So in this case, my checkings account is not the same as my savings account. Now for those that did that chase glitch, y'all bugging. And the way to do not equals or isn't the same, you would do the exclamation point and the equal sign. And here, this is very unique because how can you do a less than equal sign to two strings? They're not numbers. So what the computer does is that it looks at it in a alphabetical order. So whatever letter is first in the alphabet, it compares it to whatever in the string. So for right now, it's Peter Parker, I'm comparing it, like those two strings. P, P, they're both the same. E, A comes first, so that means that it should be less than, but it's not in this case. So that's why I printed out false. So as like I said before, conditions, if this happens, do this, else do that. So I decided to create it in a blackjack type of concept. Your first card, your second card. If the first card and second card equals 2, then that means you have 2 aces in blackjack, right? But if you have a card that equals up to 21, then you got blackjack, you won. Else you just got regular hands. But in this case, 10 and 11 make 21, so obviously I got blackjack. So now there are ways you can combine conditions, and that's by using the double and symbol or the parallel bar symbol. So I decided to create an example using number of views and number of likes as variables. So if the number of likes is greater than 100, and which means that they both have to meet the conditions, the number of views is greater than 500, then I want you to print out your video has been played over 500 times. Else, keep sharing it or have like a notification say, keep sharing your video to get more views. Same thing with here, but I just put the or sign and see what comes up. Now the ternary operator is kind of like a different way of writing an if-else statement, but not many people use that, but I just decided to see what it would look like, right? So the next condition I did was switch cases, and switch cases are the same as if-else statements, but they're a lot more clean and they catch things a lot easier because there are certain ways that you can write it that make sure that it falls into one of these categories, right? Because if-else statements, it kind of like you have to keep writing so many conditions in order for you to catch them all. So in this case, I did based off of my favorite show, The Avatar: The Last Airbender. I put a variable called element, and then I gave it air. So based off the element that I have, it'll fall into one of these categories. So since I put air, it's gonna fall into here. If it falls into water, there, earth, etc. And you always gotta have a default case for the switch statements because it wants to make sure you cover all your bases as possible. So if it doesn't, for some reason, matches any of the cases, it'll go to the default. As compared to if else statements, it just doesn't show a response. So now we're getting into range operators, which basically uses a certain range for your conditions. So for example, I decided to create an example using the grading system that I saw online on social media because it was like, if you get an 80 or 100, that's an automatic A. And I'm like, when I was in school, 90 and above, that's an A. But for some reason, it's like the education system's cooked.